Okay. Probably not going to be talking for very long this week because the child is home for fall break. So he is in the next room playing Roblox loudly. And also YouTube is running on television playing Roblox videos. I do have my door closed, but I don't know how much it's blocking the sound. And of course there's Chip. And it's probably going to be short because I really haven't done much since last week. Like I said, because he's on fall break, I did not go thrifting today because he does not like to go to the thrift store. And also he had a dentist appointment today, so I didn't want to do that double unpleasantness of dentist and getting dragged to a thrift store. He had a good checkup though, no cavities, so that's nice. It's not that I've done no doll stuff though. If you remember the magnet skeleton glow-in-the-dark head from last week, I used my new epoxy putty and a packing peanut to fill in the back of her head, and then I had the 6-scale doll wig that fit, and it is glued in place, so I will be able to style it later, which I do want to try. This wig was originally in a bun, and now Chip wants out of the room. Hold on. So this wig was one from the American Girls and Many Lands dolls, and it was originally in a bun. And I thought that was so limiting, so I took it down, and now I want to try to put it back in the bun. I'm not sure if I'll be able to. Anyway, I know what I want to sew for her. I know the kind of clothes I want to make. I just haven't had thread in the machine that's the color that would work with it. And I get into these moods where I want to sew as much as I can without changing the thread. So that's my excuse for not making her dress yet. Also, I am considering, obviously I haven't decided whether I want to do it or not, painting her hands, feet, and lower legs and lower arms, like probably airbrush, since this is a slightly soft plastic and I don't want to risk the reaction where the paint never sets up. Because if you don't know, spray paint and soft plastics don't cooperate. They stay sticky. So anyway, thinking of painting the extremities black, fading back into skin tone, and maybe painting bones on top of it. And I do have some glow-in-the-dark paint that I could go over the top of that with also. But I haven't decided yet. So she is still a work in progress. My notes, I'm calling her Lady Glowy Skull. So that's where we are with her. I did swap the thread in my machine. It's ivory thread. I did swap it out for some old gold to make a few pairs of jeans for some of my boy dolls. I had these two guys. I've had them for a while. This one is another Face Up by Retrograde Works. The head is a Jack Specific Girl Force Ariana. She's a pretty girl, but she also makes a pretty guy. And this one, the Face Up, is by John Oak 23. I believe it's an Obitsu head with a wing glued on. So the first pair of jeans I made, I used the wrong pattern size. I used the slender vintage male size. So it didn't fit this body. Even though these guys had both been wearing mass-produced pants. So I decided it was finally time to make my own pants for them to wear. So, didn't fit him. Fit him. He has a Liv Jake body. And then I remade the pants for him. And then they were both, bright, dark blue, fresh blue denim. And I decided I wanted them to look aged, and now the cat wants back in again. So, for this pair, I just threw them in a jar with some very diluted bleach and shook it up thoroughly and put it in the sun for a while because heat always makes chemical reactions go faster. I did not put the jar on tight. I didn't want to risk stuff blowing up. I don't know if bleach will do that, but like I said, I didn't want to risk it. And it did bleach the old gold or miner's gold thread out because it is a cotton thread. So if I'd known I was going to bleach it, I would have used my old gold polyester, because polyester won't bleach, instead of the, not old gold, miner's gold. It's called miner's gold because, of course, you all know the story, blue jeans starting for the gold rush miners in California in the 1850s, so history. Anyway, so that thread bleached out, but these jeans, I wanted them to look like 90s acid washed jeans, because this is kind of, like I said, my dolls don't generally have personalities. The cat's still out there. But this one is as close to a personality as I have, and he is a sort of hipster, pretentious art student. So he has his vintage 90s acid washed jeans. But then I got back to this guy, and I wanted his jeans to look, again, not completely shiny and new. I wanted some age to them. So there's a combination of sandpaper and bleach. Like I said, I looked up, there are communities of people and many websites devoted to figuring out ways to get your jeans to have the perfect fade to them. So I read some of that. A lot of it involves like wearing your pants every day for weeks or months without washing them. It's not going to happen with a doll. They don't do much that's going to wear them out in a nice way. So I did sandpaper and bleach. And yeah, that's his pants. One thing I might do for doll jeans in the future, even if I don't want them to look that bleached and worn, is the least I might do is take sandpaper or a file to this seam on the side. Because that's one of the things I've noticed about real jeans, is this seam always looks a little more worn. And you can always tell when a pair of jeans have been taken in, because I have narrowed some legs of mine. The new seam just doesn't look as worn out as the original seam. So that's my tip for making doll jeans look worn in, is sand the edge of the seams. Play with bleach and sandpaper. So then I decided to make a shirt, and I made this shirt for him. This is when I switched to the ivory thread and started just seeing how many things I could sew with ivory thread. I did not make this sweater. This sweater came on a Dreams and Visions Mademoiselle Marie doll action figure, who was supposed to be from the 40s, so that's further part of his hipsterism, is his vintage beatnik sweater. But I did make this shirt, and this kicked off what most of my sewing for the rest of the weekend last week, and so far this week has been, is using up the last of what cloth I have. This oatmeal heather, I just had barely enough to get the front and back of this, and I used these things called, I think, soft color transfers to iron on for the pattern on the front of a shirt. And the camouflage, it's a really nice stretch knit that years ago I did a big amount of commission sewing for someone's Momoko dolls, and basically she had accumulated a lot of cloth from just working in Target and finding clothes that had really good prints and weights for doll use. And part of the deal was that she did pay me, but she also let me keep the rest of all the cloth that I didn't use. And so part of it, these were men's boxers that had several different colors of camouflage she sent. But this started me to using the very last of the gray camouflage. Anyway, so that's also went into this, which has a flocked decal, also something I picked up on clearance from Joanna Fabric a few years ago. And also this, again, the sleeves and this, and also I got a pair of socks and a pair of stretchy short shorts. Used up all the rest of the usable pieces of this I had. And also this, I believe, used up the rest of the stripes of this I had. So that really kicked me off into using up the rest of the cloth, with the further provision that it had to work with ivory thread. But I ended up with some stuff that I think didn't turn out too bad. I think Of course, if you want to use stuff up, making super dollfy size stuff is a quick way to do it. And in the past, I think the first time I ever had the inclination to just start using up cloth in doll clothes without a lot of thought to it, just to get it done, it was for super dollfy sized. And I ended up with stuff that I actually liked a lot, because I think I've mentioned before that I work best with randomness. And this kind of sewing, just sew as fast as I can, grab some cloth that I might not like so much, or I used to like, and I used a lot, and there's only a little bit left, and just see what you can make. So I had this for super dollfy sized, this for, again, for the guy's size, which this, I will say that this shirt and this shirt are based on the same pattern for this shirt, which I shared. It's on my Flickr, and I link to it a lot whenever I mention that I have used the pattern. I can sew this pattern up in about half an hour. It's pretty easy because the raglan sleeves mean you don't have to spend a lot of time getting the curve of the sleeve in. So I don't know that I'm a good judge for a beginner pattern, especially since this works best with knits. It's not the most beginner pattern, but it can also work with wovens. You just have to use knits for the ribbing on the cuffs and collar and waistband. Anyway, to convert this pattern that I shared to the guy size, you really just need to lengthen things a bit. Lengthen the sleeves, and I did not lengthen the body for this one, but for this one I did. So that was that cloth. And then I got into, let's see, which one do I want to show next? Not necessarily the order I made it, but it's like I used up the last of this green cloth and this pink lace. And this is on this doll is, this head is from a Create Flower Princess Lisette, or Lisette, which is a doll that I actually had when I was a kid. I got it for Christmas in like 1981 or 82. So this was a face of my youth, and I was really, really overjoyed to find one of these in a thrift store a few years ago. The skin tone match is not perfect with this Raquel Tone Fashionista's body, but it's close. I am debating whether I want to get a made to move for her, because I do, like I said, this doll is like royalty from my childhood, and I do want her to have a nice body, but the made to move, just, it's that trade-off between aesthetics and articulation. And I think I prefer the aesthetics of this body, but that's just what I'm saying right now. We'll see. So anyway, yeah, I used up the last of this green mottled print and the last of this lace, which had, not only did I have this forever, this had been in my mom's sewing supplies, and I think I acquired it from her in the 90s. So, don't know how old it is, but it's used up in a doll dress now. And one thing I say, yes, it's fun to have a stash of things, but as long as it's in your stash, no one else can see it. If you use it, you can show it off. So that helps me use up things that I think are fabulous, but I tend to just open up the storage box and look at them and say, oh, those are great, and then close it back up. And then eventually I realize it would be nice if other people could see how great it is. Or maybe let me know that's not so great, what are you talking about? Anyway, it's nice to use things. So I also I had this cloth, which, it's a nice subdued print, but the texture of the cloth is kind of coarse. I think there might be some polyester in it. Again, this was not a cloth that I picked out. I have bought a lot of assortments, sort of grab bags of cloth in thrift stores, and that's where this cloth came from. So made up this super dollfy size skirt and just started layering this lace on the edge. This is some lace that I got from Deb's Lace and Trim online, which they sell things in 5-yard quantities, and I would recommend. I've only made one order from Deb's Lace, but I really like Deb's Lace. And they do have clearance stuff in smaller than 5-yard hanks with reduced price per yard, and the prices per yard aren't bad anyway. Anyway, not being compensated for that. So this is super dollfy sized, I guess vaguely Lolita-y skirt. And then after I made that, I had enough left to squeeze this Barbie sized dress out of. I did have to improvise for the top because, well, I had enough for the skirt and a little bit for the ruffle. I've had a little bit of candy corn, so you know I get a little scatterbrained when I've had sugar. And I had to do the back on off grain, like 90 degrees off grain, so if this were a human-sized garment, you would probably notice the lack of give to the cloth, but dolls don't care. And so the front is made out of 2 pieces because I did not have one piece that was wide enough to do that whole shoulder to waist length. And I actually, like I said, one of the things I like to do when I'm sewing stuff with just leftover bits of cloth and not putting a lot of thought into what I'm going to do with it is sometimes I end up with things I really like, and this dress is one of those things that I really like. It has, to me, a very 1940s Hollywood musical kind of look to it. It's like, I don't think anyone in the 40s actually dressed like this, but you would still see patterns for things like this and photo shoots. And anyway, you might notice that the doll wearing this is my Ever After High Cupid on a Lollipop Girls hybrid. And I did repaint her face. And I actually recorded myself painting her face. And I did not notice that I bumped the tripod about 15 minutes into it. And so instead of a doll face being painted, the rest of the video was just of a bottle of paint. And you can see it's a fairly simple face style because I like to try to do stylized, but then I go ahead and do blushing on it because I like the contrast. And at first I was disappointed in this face because I didn't think she looked sweet. But as usual, once I took pictures of her, I liked the way she looked more, and then I realized that, no, she doesn't look sweet. She looks snarky, which is just fine. And so that's another random dress with a customized doll. And then I got into this cloth that is just, again, it came in an assortment, and it's just kind of hard to not think it looks like something horrible has happened, because that deep red. This is somewhere between batik and tie-dye, and it's just weird. I don't know if maybe it could have been snow-dyed. I have no idea what the process was to get the dye on the shirt, but it's very interesting. And one of those things that's not supposed to be doll scale, but I went ahead and used it for dolls, and so this is another boy doll shirt. Never can have enough boy doll clothing. Although this actually, I'm giving it to somebody. Don't get your hopes up because only one person's getting it. I shouldn't have said that. And so I made this, I cut this shirt out second and had just enough to squeeze it out. Again, I had to do off grain on the back, so it's a bit of a bias, but again, dolls don't care. And the main thing I did with the rest of that cloth was made this jumpsuit. This is Barbie size, Sakurana. Bandai Sakurana is what this doll is. Sakurana. Forgive me for mangling Japanese. I just know enough about Japanese to know I'm never pronouncing it right. Anyway, she is this really interesting combination of Barbie and action figure. Fashion doll and action figure. So she is proportioned fairly much like Barbie. So this Barbie-sized jumpsuit pattern I have fits her nicely. And I had decided a while ago that I was going to make a version of this jumpsuit pattern to share. So I have gone through and I have scanned my pieces and I have traced them in my illustration program, and I have gotten to the point of needing more black ink, which I got today. I printed this yesterday, so it's pretty I'm also obviously out of magenta, so it's just printed in green. And so I need to cut this out and sew it up and see if it works, because my sewing patterns I use for seam allowances, I use a straight stitch foot. So my seam allowances are from the center to the side of this. They are like 3/16 of an inch. They're not a full 1/4 inch. So any pattern I make for my own use is going to have really weird seam allowances. So basically, when I prepare a pattern to share with other people, not only do I have to clean up my weird hand-drawn, let's see, taped together, straight pinned holes, original patterns, I have to add a 1/8 of an inch of seam allowance to them, and then that's why I have to print them out and test them to see if they actually work. So I will be testing this Barbie size jumpsuit pattern soon, and then posting it on Flickr and Tumblr and maybe my sewing blog, So I Am, which I don't post to very much, because it's really, I intended it to be for sewing human-sized stuff, and doll-sized projects are just so much faster, and which is so much nicer to get finished. So, we'll see. But I will be sharing this pattern, no charge. I'll just need to test it and then write up instructions for it that make sense to people who are not me. And that's pretty much, I did also sew this last night to use up the very last bit. Again, I had to do weird things to get all the pieces cut out. The very last bit of this blue with silver sparkle stripes cloth. And I just happen to have a t-shirt bought secondhand with damage to it. Like I say, I usually, whenever I do thrift clothes to use for doll clothes, I try to buy something that's damaged that people wouldn't want to buy anyway. That way I'm not taking perfectly good clothes and using them for dolls. It's okay if it doesn't bother you to do that. It's my choice to try to only use damaged clothes for doll cloth. Anyway, so I'd had this shirt that turned out to be a fantastic color match to this aqua stripey stuff that I've had for probably 9 years. And so, yeah, that's where I am right now. I've been sewing, not customizing too much. And I keep thinking of all the things I want to do and doing almost none of them, but I'm still doing something. So, you should know by now that's how I am. Have a good day.